Welcome everybody to this week's Biogas TV. Um, the most fun half hour, or what is the tagline? The best live
Oh,
biogas show in the world.
yeah.
That's how it works. Um, and so
Best half
today
hour
we're
of your week.
continuing our what's that, Drew?
The best half hour of your week.
Yeah, the best half hour of your week. That's right. I think your work week, let's say.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm filling in today for Paul Green. As you may have noticed, I am not Paul Green. Um, and here, as always, with Drew Pouchot, who's going to take us through the roundup on off takes, typically towards the end, but he's also brought us today's guest from Nopetro Energy. And so, big thank you to Drew about that. And this is in a continuation of our discussion about CNG fueling and fueling with renewable gas. The purpose and intent of this series is to understand the um, how can we scale renewable demand? How can we scale demand for our renewable gas? um, Especially within the transport sector as it generates RINs. And it currently seems as if this market is growing, but we'd love it to grow even faster. And so to that end, we've had a number of guests on to talk about conversions of vehicles, and we've talked about the new. We had Cummins on, representative from Cummins, to talk about the new 15-liter engine. We're going to go into that a little bit today. But today we've got Kevin Hyatt from No Petro Energy, and No Petro is designs, build, finances, and operates and maintains RNG production facilities as well as CNG and RNG fueling stations, and they work closely with fleets uh, to enable either conversions or mostly, allowing fleets to go on to CNG. And to that end, they have 10 and 20-year exclusive deals where they are uh, the fueler for both government and Fortune 500 companies. They're and so they are really a kind of unique, vertically integrated RNG solutions provider where they are both making the RNG at their current two landfill gas RNG production facilities, as well as the dispenser. So they really have both sides of that equation covered. Kevin's going to go into that a bit more. Um, so Kevin has today a bit of a presentation. Now we do want to we hope we can actually see Kevin too. I think our video link can handle it. But Kevin, I wanted to just turn it over to you and have you go through the presentation, especially focusing on those aspects of where the demand growth is going to happen and then the practical implications for fleets and kind of the general sales pitch.
Good morning. Good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. Thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be on here with everybody this morning. My name is Kevin Hyatt. I'm based in Dallas, Texas. The company is headquartered in Miami, Florida. Was actually started in 2007 by a couple of lawyers, entrepreneurial lawyers, who really hated being lawyers. And they saw an opportunity with natural gas supply uh, and to put it into municipal vehicles and fueling entities, and use it as a transportation fuel and get away from the emissions of diesel. So with that, I'll go through the introduction. Today, we own, operate, build, maintain about 15 fueling stations in the state of Florida. You can see the graphic on the right, the number, some of our higher profile customers. Our first deal was a 20-year deal with the city of Tallahassee. Most of our deals are 10 to 20-year agreements. It kind of takes that long to help pay off the infrastructure that goes into place with a CNG RNG fueling facility. But today we fuel over 1,000 vehicles a day. So in that time frame, the company has grown tremendously. And along with our CNG dispensing has come the RNG dispensing. Here's a graphic of a station we stood up, and I'll show you a real life picture here in a minute of the processing facility we built at a landfill in Indian River County, Vero Beach, Florida. That's on the Atlantic side, kind of north central part of the state. This one's going to produce 1 million MMBTUs of RNG. And for those of you that are numbers folks, that's about 7 million gallons a year of equivalent diesel fuel on a BTU basis. We set up this project. This was our first landfill gas project. And for RNG purposes, landfill gas, wastewater treatment gas, swine and dairy waste all qualify as BTU sources for RNG. This is our public-private side operation just outside of Tallahassee. We fuel waste trucks. And for those of you who aren't familiar in the waste industry is probably one of the biggest compressed natural gas RNG users in the country, in the US. And the reason is folks like Waste Management, Republic Services, Waste Connections have been making their own fuel for a very long time. They own control the landfills, therefore they own control the landfill gas. They saw an opportunity back with the government regulations 20 years ago and said, hey, we can make our own fuel and get off of diesel. And they benefit greatly from a value standpoint of not burning diesel and then burning renewable natural gas. This is a picture of our Lynx facility in the city of Orlando. This is not bragging on our part, but this station has almost 100% uptime since we commissioned it in 2016. And the reason is it's sitting on a gas pipeline, so we've got ready access to fuel. Our compressors that are on the station run off of grid electricity, but in the event we lose the grid, they get a few hurricanes in Orlando now and then. But in the event we lose electricity, we have generation standby power on site that can run continuously in the event we lose grid power. So we fuel for the city of Orlando about 200 buses a day. And that is the behind the fence fueling facility adjacent to their bus hub or bus maintenance facility in Orlando. We have a second structure facility going up for them in Kissimmee, where they are expanding their bus fleet, and those new 20 bus fleet will go into operation later this fall, and it will be fueled by Nopetro as well. This is the actual picture of the RNG processing facility at this landfill. The technology that goes into RNG gas conditioning takes a lot, probably 90% of its conditioning technology from the oil and gas industry. By the time you get done processing landfill gas or wastewater treatment gas and make it into an RNG molecule, that RNG molecule is now a fungible product that can go into any natural gas pipeline. It can go into your home, it can go into your furnace, it can go into your gas stove, it can go into your vehicles. So it is a like for like, renewable natural gas product. Like I said, this is the one, a picture of the one we stood up in Vero Beach, Florida. Took us about 18 months of construction time. We have probably 3 more of these under development and another 5 different projects around the country in the pipeline, in the project pipeline.
Evan, you know what your upgrading approach is there? It looks like you've got some PSA units, maybe for nitrogen nitrogen O2 removal. Are you using membranes as well, or?
Yep. So the gas coming out of the landfill is typically about, and it is landfill specific. No 2 landfills are created equal. But the gas coming out of the landfill is about 50% methane. It's about 35 to 40% CO2. The remainder is oxygen, nitrogen, siloxanes, volatile organic compounds. So yeah, with the filtration capability pressure swing absorption, membrane technology. We take that landfill gas that would normally go to a flare stack, and it was here for a long time. Normally go to a flare stack and gets processed and then injected into the local gas pipeline grid at a 96% plus MMBTU molecule.
All right. So PSA and membrane, got it.
Yep. The graphic on the top right gives you an indication of the operational RNG projects in the U.S. that are operating in yellow and under construction in gray. And this is only over the last 9 years or so. But the trend continues to grow. We continue to look for opportunities with landfills and water treatment plants and dairy facilities, anything where you've got a biogenic waste product that would normally go to a flare stack is a potential opportunity to create RNG. In 2024, 90% of the CNG transportation fueling was already being handled by RNG. It offers a maximum environmental benefit. It's 100% domestic. It's not fossil fuel. And I'll show you in a second, it's substantially less expensive than diesel.
I
You
think
can
that's
see,
definitely what we want to see here. So
right?
I want to put a pin in one of those statements, but let's go to that because I think you have a great overview. This is interesting too in terms of the types of trucks, especially the long haul trucking.
Yeah,
Um,
we,
we
we've
think that do we think that and I guess that's going to be the next big driver of demand growth, right?
Yeah, we think this X15 motor from Cummins is going to be the next paradigm shift in CNG RNG demand. You know, not not even talking about the current war with Iran and what it's done to gasoline and diesel prices. I'll show you a graphic here in a second of the value of RNG before the war. But between the environmental benefits, the cost comparative analysis of maintenance and the overall fuel savings, we think this Class 8 motor for the heavy long haul industry is going to be the game changer. People are already using this motor. It's already being deployed. Yeah, we expect to see a lot more of them. Let me show
That's
you.
an interesting one too, though, the scoring that
Yeah.
you actually find that RNG of all of the clean transportation options available to fleets today, through this kind of objective scoring, maybe you can explain. This is pretty interesting.
So we kind of went through and just did a high level score on the current deployable technologies between diesel, RNG, electric, and hydrogen. You can see, the estimated purchase price there on the far left. Diesel is significantly cheaper than the next candidate, which is the RNG. And really, we expect as more of those engines and fueling systems get deployed, that RNG cost should come down, should become pretty close to parity with the diesel deployment. But when you start to look at the scores of sustainability, from a range standpoint, they're pretty even between diesel and RNG. Fueling structure, infrastructure availability, Love's diesel stations across the U.S. Everybody passes the Love's on the highway. They've got CNG refueling capability at a lot of their stations now. The fueling cost difference between the two is significant. It's not rocket science to add CNG, RNG to your fleet. Nopetro has a program where we help entities that are trucking entities, that are box truck entities, return to base entities switch from diesel to CNG. There's a financial capability that we offer that helps fleet switch. We can provide the fueling infrastructure and the fuel itself. So it's
This
not
is
a
pretty astonishing here in terms of the purchase price, right? I mean, we've had this big electrification push in all sectors, but especially in transportation.
yeah.
And this is the first time I've seen that kind of upfront cost comparison, you're 170 to 200K for a diesel, 250, 275. So you're looking basically 50 to 100K ish upcharge for an RNG vehicle today. And as you said, those costs are probably going to be coming down. That upfront difference is going to be coming down. But then you look at electric and you're at 500,000. So it's almost, more than double the cost to go electric, and the charging infrastructure, right? Um, yeah, I mean it's there for the cars, just barely. I've got one, but I can't imagine for the truck, especially long haul. That is really chicken and egg situation.
Yeah,
Um,
and you
yeah.
know, and data centers keep popping up around the country, and it's going to put a pretty heavy strain on the grid. So something's going to have to give, and it's not going to be good for the electric side when it does give.
Are you seeing any commitments to go electric now, going back to natural gas at all, or
Um,
to RNG?
we saw quite a bit of interest at the National Truck Expo in Las Vegas 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, Kevin, you said, have you attended that the last few years in a row?
We did last 2 years, and it was a big electric push last year.
Mhm.
And everybody was touting the incentives and the government subsidies, but I can tell you, we have a customer in Florida, a municipal customer who bought much to our dismay, 20 new electric buses, and this was last year based on the government subsidies and credits um, that were provided to them. And today, one of those buses runs. One. Yeah. So our tax dollars hard at work right there, camped out in the bus depot barn. Not
That's a shame. Um,
That's several $1 million of shame.
Yeah.
yeah, gosh. Well,
That those kind of stories aren't, that's not the only story like that that I've run across. And, I think we're going to see those stories pop up more and more as infrastructure becomes more and more of a problem. I mean, your comments on data centers, there's been some studies to look at what data centers can afford to absorb from a power cost standpoint, and it's pretty astronomical.
You know,
Um,
we've been doing the CNG RNG piece for 20 years as an industry, and there's still a lot of really good white papers, case examples of how well this is performed. I don't hear of anybody doing white papers and testimonials on how well the electric side has performed in a comparable environment.
so we
mhm.
have basically any kind of truck now that can go CNG,
Yep,
and that's being provided by all the major OEMs, right?
correct.
You've got the Cummins 15 engine, which gives you comparable range and improved efficiency and plenty of horsepower, right? So it can apply to the long haul trucking, and they can get over the hills and all this, right? Fully loaded. So
Yep,
you've got your technology is here. We, as the renewable gas, like the biogas industry, we're saying we can make the renewable fuel. So any truck you're already running, you're running your fleet, you can be 100% renewable if you convert the fleet. And oh, by the way, reliability is up there because especially if we can park it on a pipeline, because we'll have and we can even do backup generation, so you can show them the sort of the technical objections, right? So now we have the economic questions. We know that there's an upcharge of a CNG vehicle versus diesel. I think you're going to take us through that now, and we know that it's got, on your chart there, we know that this is viable now, and no real questions about refueling on the highway and all this. And so now this you can take us into the economics, right? So
So this was done. The graphs were done before the Iran war started. So the payback is actually a little bit shorter now. But If you're running a truck fleet and doing 75,000 annual miles on a dollar per dollar basis, CNG versus diesel, that $85,000 higher base price, the original acquisition price, you can get a payback on that in less than 5 years. If you're running 125,000 miles, you can get a payback in less than 3 years on that higher base price of the vehicle. And this doesn't include, you know, the intangible benefits of you've got lower scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions coming out of the CNG vehicle, RNG vehicle. You've got a cleaner environment. You've got a less volatile fueling environment just at your price. You can fix the price of your RNG for as long as 7 years.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's some developers that would like to fix it for even longer.
Yeah, yeah. I'll give you a real world example. City of Spokane, Washington, was running their municipal waste and city fleet. And these are 2025 numbers. 527,000 gallons of diesel is what they would normally burn. They're using CNG, and that cost was 1.3 million for them in CNG fuels for 2025. When you take into account an additional $760,000 in fuel credits for running RNG, now you're down to a fuel price at $1.03 a gallon relative to diesel. So they saved over $1 million last year. In just
so it's a good point, Kevin. So like in this break-even analysis, are you just looking at the cost of the CNG versus I mean this is RNG, right? But are you taking credit for that incentive for that RFS in this analysis? Does that go to the fleet?
In our fueling contracts, we shared a portion of the value of that renewable fuel standard RNG price with our customers, with the person consuming the fuel. And in this example, the gallon per price of diesel is $4. The net price of CNG in the vehicle is $2.15.
And so how does what would it be if there was no incentive, right? If you were not sharing? I mean, you don't, if that's a proprietary, you don't have to tell me, but like, is it, yeah.
So that's going to be market dependent because
Yep.
it is based on natural gas prices to a degree. And natural gas prices not as volatile as diesel, obviously. But the worst one, the worst one we see is $2.50 a gallon on a CNG basis.
That's a great baseline for us to understand, right? So that would be fast fill
Yeah,
market rate CNG.
yeah,
So pretty much anywhere in the United States, I would imagine, other than the very expensive gas markets on delivery, like I'm in New York, New England, I imagine it's going to be a little higher.
yeah.
Um, but pretty much any place in North America, you're going to be at that 250 or less.
We,
Um,
we've got we've got a trucking customer in Bakersfield, California. Uh, when the day after the Iran war broke out, his local fueling station down the street where he fills his CNG trucks, diesel prices went up 50 cents a gallon, and his natural gas price went down 10 cents a gallon.
There you go.
all right. So we got the economic, we have the technical issue, we have the infrastructure that's in the place, we got the engines, we got the trucks, we got the economics. We even have some incentives and programs that are going to help a fleet convert, but they're
Yeah,
not
so Alex,
necessary, not strictly necessary. So what's left on the pitch?
actually, Alex, or sitting Paul, as I might call you for the moment, I did want to jump in there and talk on the infrastructure. You mentioned that the stations you operate have backup on-site power generation, which is I'm curious if that's easier or at least more commonly seen at CNG stations than it is traditional fueling stations or electric charging points. Do you have any insight into that?
I can tell you our policy, our strategy, because our customers, a lot of our customers are municipal public entities must serve critical infrastructure kind of stuff, yeah,
Mhm.
our stuff is going to be mostly we've got backup power, on site and capability.
Well, I
Generally, in
think
the
that could be an
industry,
interesting point for a lot of these fleets that are kind of looking at this stuff going, well, I mean, where are these stations located? I
mhm,
think there's an add-on there to say not only do we have plenty of stations located across the U.S. and growing, but these are stations that may be operational when others aren't.
right.
Yeah.
And then
I
the
mean,
other thing I
it does seem it
touched
does
on,
seem like it does seem like if I'm a fleet operator, this is kind of getting into the no-brainer territory. And I could see that, when I'm purchasing a new truck, right? Or when I'm trying to make a decision how we go forward, it's not an easy decision, I'm assuming, for any fleet operator to just say, okay, I got all this existing fleet, right? I'm not going to just scrap it. So what are you seeing? And we can go into the numbers a little more here, but what is the hurdle now to get these conversions going, to build the demand? Like, what do we really need to be doing?
You know,
What can the
the,
biogas industry do better?
yeah, there's a useful life in any motor, and that useful life is, our customers, when we talk to fleet operators and managers, we know they've got an opportunity that they're going to turn over so many trucks every year. So when we go to those guys and say, hey, we'll help you finance, buy 5, 10, 15 new trucks. You're going to buy them anyway. You're going to buy new vehicles to replace your diesel fleet. Go with a CNG fleet, and we can show you how these numbers work to make this, one, from an emissions standpoint, regulatory standpoint, much easier to bear. But two, your CFO is going to love this because your fuel prices just got fixed for the next 7 years, and you're not subject to the vagaries of the diesel market.
So the translation into CNG is basically dependent in some way on motor end of life, right? So the max case of deployment would be, every engine in a big fleet is replaced by as it wears out, is replaced.
Yep.
So that would be your maximum kind of case.
And there are states, Texas is one, Florida is another one, where there are available incentive dollars to that fleet manager, that fleet buyer, to help offset that incremental cost of $85,000. There are state funds available, and this goes back to the Volkswagen settlement with the EPA. They're using those dollars that did not get deployed in electric vehicle deployment. They're repurposing those dollars and offering them up to fleet owners who want to go, near zero emissions capability.
Got it. We have a question here about RNG price in the business model, and what price is the RNG, right? So my understanding is that essentially what you're buying to fuel the vehicle is the energy is essentially at the fossil gas price for that location. And then in order to make it RNG, you're splitting the incentives, right? The RINs and whatnot
Right.
with the RNG producer, and that's what gets you the green molecule.
Right. And that net RNG price, market dependent, because there's state and federal incentives that go along with that fueling capability, can be another $1.50 off of that CNG price.
Got it. So another good question here from Peter Burley is because we're out there hunting for demand, right? And we need markets for our RNG. Have you ever thought of, well, just subsidizing, paying that fleet owner to say, we'll invest in your fleet?
That's what we do. I mean, that's we stood up a whole third division to do just that.
Got it. So when you say finance, you really mean it.
Yeah. Oh, It's for the right customer, for the right amount of volume, the right number of miles driven per year. Yeah, it's a fairly simple calculation.
It's fascinating. Anything else that you'd like to share with us, Kevin, before we wrap and go to Drew with our offtake roundup?
I've got 40, almost 45 years in the fossil fuel industry between natural gas, oil, and natural gas liquids. I've worked most of the oil and gas shale plays around the world, sorry, around the lower 48. And I own 8 vehicles, five of which are four wheels, and another five in two-wheel vehicles. None of mine are electric. And when I got the chance to come do something really cool with Nopetro and help develop CNG, RNG markets, I was all in. So this is probably a great way to end, my 45 years in the industry, and I'm having the most fun I've had in a long time.
That's great to hear that, Kevin, and we appreciate all of your efforts and No Petro in showing us, leading the way. So Drew, what do we got?
Yeah, awesome to hear from you, Kevin, on this. It was really interesting. I do think it'll be worth touching on at some point. We may have to circle back to this in another episode on tax credits and incentives that are out there. I do think it would be good to kind of start sharing the word on some of the grant programs that are in place. Texas, I think, just launched one recently and has had grant programs in place over the years for alternative fuel vehicles. And then we've got 45Z, which everyone is, of course, keeping their eye on. But then there have been discussions about a fueler's tax credit to go to the fleets of up to $1 a gallon equivalent, which could be game changing as well. A lot of this stuff, though, still in talk, still waiting to see it become more than just talk. So, and somebody did ask, what's the price of CFR today? The last transaction we saw, or at least that I saw, was $445 Canadian per ton. If you want to get in touch with me and talk about what that looks like in a US dollar per MMBTU basis, based on your CI score, please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to walk through that. We are seeing D3 2026 RINs trade $2.66 and LCFS trading $73. I think those price points are really important, especially when we look at the fact that we're seeing an 11-cent offer on the D3 2026 versus 2027 spread. So somebody thinks that the current year D3 price has an 11-cent premium over next year.
But there's an upward trend. There's an uptick. I mean, there's a real uptick on D3 and the LCFS.
D3 prices have been trending up, and we want to talk about why that is. And just kind of very quickly, very kind of high level comment on this today. We're seeing D4 prices trending up and up and up and up. And a lot of the theory that I've been running into behind that is that that's being driven by the CFR market. And the way I kind of like to refer to it is these sinks of demand. You can fill up one sink or another sink, but they all kind of drain at different rates from different sources. And so I like to look at it that way because we've got renewable fuel that generates a D4 RIN that is being detracted from here in the US and being brought to Canada because of these CFR prices. But it's becoming increasingly delayed to get a CI score and pathway in place in Canada.
It's getting worse.
So
Not
that's
better.
what's causing those CFR prices to keep trending up, is because there isn't enough supply in that market. But the more that price moves up, the more it moves up the potential detraction from the US for RIN generation from the same products. All of these products that produce credits here in the US are now looking at Canada and saying, well, how do I get that greater value? And so it's creating this kind of tug of war situation, causing all prices to elevate. And And then on top of that, we're seeing new demand from voluntary players. I actually had a call this morning that was kind of exciting. Uh, Voluntary interest from a industrial company wanting to offset a BCF a year of gas consumption with RNG, and talking to me about what does that look like? How do we do that cost effectively? Which, of course, is
Mentally.
always
So that the voluntary
function.
market might be coming back. That's also exciting to hear, at least anecdotally, right?
Right,
Um,
right. Always,
all right.
always keep the caveat there of every situation is different, every conversation is unique. But it is good to see that we're seeing this uplift in demand. Still a lot of uncertainty though. There's still a lot of issues with where are these prices going to go over a 5 year period or longer. That's what's causing a lot of the buyers to still kind of hold off. But still good sign to see there's RIN and credit prices trending upwards.
Yeah. Finally, a little bit of optimism here in our RNG markets. We could use it. All right. Well, then I'm going to wrap up this week as substitute hosting for our illustrious leader there, Paul Green. And Kevin, big thank you again to you and Nopetro for attending, and Drew to roping them in. And so I'll sign off until next week. Thanks
Absolutely.
all.